Sci-Fi DVD, two brothers' alphabetical journey through a vast variety of vivid films that we are vehement to view. I'm Josh.
I'm Noah.
And today we are talking for V for Vendetta.
That was a lot of alliteration there.
I tried. It's a 2005 movie.
Then, I gotta say, up front, this is a top 10 movie for me. If you know, whenever it's like, what's your favorite movie? I'm not gonna play that game.
Yeah.
But if there was a top 10, this would be in it.
You know, if you had to start a DVD collection now from scratch, this would probably be one of the ones you would buy right
Yes,
away.
or if like you had to throw everything out, but you're only allowed to keep so many, it's like, I'd keep this one.
Yeah, this would survive The Purge.
Yes.
The Purge wouldn't, but this would. No, I love this movie as well, as apparently did a lot of people at the time. I think it made 132.5 million worldwide.
All right.
And
it is a comic book movie, and
yes.
I have read the comic.
Yes.
It's an Alan Moore comic that's, you know...
He didn't love this movie, but he's a big old curmudgeon.
He doesn't like anything.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, I watched the movie first, I read the comic second, that might taint people's, opinion, but it's like, and I can, talk about, what they do differently.
Yeah, we can touch on some of those. I guess I should do my synopsis.
Synopsipods.
In a future British dystopian society, a shadowy freedom fighter known only by the alias of V plots to overthrow the tyrannical government with the help of a young woman.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, bare bones. It's directed by James McTeigue. Sorry. He's done The Raven and Ninja Assassin. The writers are the Wachowski siblings.
Mm-hmm.
They're known for the Matrix films mostly, but he also have done Jupiter Ascending, Cloud Atlas, Speed Racer.
And you can definitely see some of the Matrix.
Oh yeah, I mean
all over this.
They play. I'll touch on the filmmaking of it, but they still play with their bullet time technology and things.
But not
like
as egregious.
No, not as egregious. No, they have refined their action viewpoints, and I think maybe having another director probably curtailed that.
Yes.
Starring Hugo Weaving as V. Originally was supposed to be played by a guy named James Purefoy. Was originally cast, and he is in some of the scenes, and then dubbed over. You might have known, but Hugo Weaving is known for the Matrix trilogy, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Mortal Engines, other things.
But he hates sci-fi and fantasy films.
He does not want to do those kind of films anymore. I'm going, that's your bread and butter, man. Why are you messing with your bread and butter?
Yet, that's all you're in.
Yeah. Natalie Portman playing Evie. We've talked about her before, but she's been in Black Swan, Leon the Professional, Star Wars prequels, and of course, Thor's.
Yep. And this is definitely one of those movies that highlights how short she is.
Oh, yeah. But, also highlights how good of an actress she is.
Is.
And then to round it up, I chose Stephen Ray, who is the Inspector Finch. He's in the crime game Underworld Awakening and Interview with a Vampire as a brief role. I think he's one of the vampires that Antonio Banderas has, and he's the one that gets cut in half with a scythe.
Gotcha.
If my brain is working right now.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so not a big role in Interview with a Vampire, but he's in there.
He's in there.
Yeah. We guess we just go into it. Do you remember the 5th of November?
Well, I do because of this.
Yes, exactly. We in the States don't have Bonfire Night. We have what the equivalent of every other country in the world has, which is Independence Day from this country. They have Bonfire Night, which is on the 5th of November, where recognizes that Guy Fawkes did not blow up the Parliament, and kids get to beg for money and set off fireworks and go to a bonfire and burn an effigy of Guy Fawkes. But this is our kind of
You get the
backdrop of this old story.
Yeah, and you get the poem, and you also get a flashback to Guy Fawkes's actions.
Yeah,
and you get the first kind of iteration of like the idea versus the man, because they said like the man's dead, but you have to give it to him. It's like he's still remembered. He's still
remembered. The event was remembered, and he's viewed as a villain, but it's become, the narration of Evie of Natalie Portman saying who was the man who kind of loved him, is kind of the crux of this movie that we're going to watch.
Well, and the movie pivots from a lot of things. Like there's duality of stories going on. There's different viewpoints. There's a myth versus the reality. It plays with a lot of things, and it's done really well.
Yeah. And we get the view of the news of this dystopic, I guess, future, and it's a Piers Morgan-esque presentation.
Yeah, it's any hot-headed,
right-wing.
Well, I mean, right, left. Someone who is so riled up that he can just or they can just spout whatever they want, and usually for derogatory or stoking the anger.
Yeah, make their England will prevail, make Great Britain great again, kind of thing.
And it's, I think it is cute is the fact that they are obviously pandering to a U.S. audience because they spend a lot of time in these beginnings talking about the former U.S. It kind of puts a spin on, we did not do well.
No. The world is not doing well. England's kind of the only place that is doing well.
Right.
And we see Natalie Portman getting ready for a night out, as well as we see this shadowy figure of V getting ready for a night out. They're both kind of getting dressed for their nocturnal activities.
Yeah, and I think it is interesting that this announcer who is the voice, and I'll get into the various
body
departments,
parts,
but his last thing he basically says before is that no one escapes judgment. And it's kind of like, this is the tip of the hat of this is going to be V's thing of like, no one's going to escape judgment. This is, part of the film is a revenge film.
And then Natalie Portman gets accosted by some men on the street that she thinks are just, drunkards or something, but they turn out to be the secret police known as the Fingermen.
Yes, which is probably a good time of the body parts. So we just said there's the voice.
Yes.
And this is actually from the comic book, is that this new government, instead of like having agencies like the CIA or the FBI, they're all named after body parts.
Yeah, the head.
The chancellor is the head.
Yeah.
The kind of the secret police is the hand who controls the fingermen. The surveillance is the eyes and ears.
Yeah.
The propaganda machine is the mouth, which controls the voice. Yeah. And the police, which the inspector is part of, is the nose.
Yeah, they sniff out the crimes.
I mean,
it's a nice little.
It's different. It definitely kind of adds to this element of this is not your normal dystopian government, but it does reek of all the totalitarian fascist governments of the past.
Yeah. And we get V coming to her rescue.
Yes.
And in this great, him quoting Shakespeare's and other classical works of fiction.
Yeah.
And I do like that they show one of the Fingermen punching him in the mask and hurting his hand really hard, because it's very important to show that his mask is near indestructible.
Right, and it shows that he is strong, he is fast. He does not need guns.
Yes.
It's a very Batman style of superhero where it's like, I don't need guns. I can use my wit and strengths. And we do get a great line, which does pertain to a lot of things of, he's just saying, like, the questioning Evie's like, well, why would you ask a masked man who he is?
Yeah,
it's like, and it's like where you stop and go like, why do people ask?
It's like I'm literally covering up my identity.
Why would I tell you this? But you get the famous V speech, which
the V monologue,
is very well done. I mean, it probably took a lot of takes, but there are 48 V words.
Yeah, and 55 of the V hints. But
yes. But it does set up. There are V's throughout this entire movie that are very blatant and some that are very hidden.
Yeah, the hidden V's are fun. I have some written down, but there are several that I've missed.
And it comes through as like, and I'll take this point because I wrote at the end, but I just want to point out, is the attention to detail in this movie is above what I think other movies did. I have to think that the person who's responsible to make sure that everything is where it should be had a really big job on their hand. Is like the one that stuck out to me, and this will come later, is that Natalie Portman gets bashed on the head.
Oh, the V scar. Yeah.
Well, she got a V scar.
Yeah.
But that scar is throughout the whole rest of it. And it heals.
Yeah.
But it's there until the end. And it's like, I think a lot of movies would do that Hollywood magic of like, oh, well, she's healed. It's gone.
Yeah.
But this movie took the time to like, no. She got whacked on the head.
It's gonna
That's
stay.
there.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. There'll be other things that we mentioned. But I think it's just fun to point out. It's like, no. The more times you rewatch, the more you realize that there is a lot of time and effort put into making this a really fleshed out story.
Yes. We also get hints beyond just the Shakespeare quotes. We also get an Albert Einstein quote of God does not play dice with the universe and that coincidences aren't real. So he takes Evie up to see his his starting masterpiece.
Yes.
Saying, laying the groundworks of blowing up the Old Bailey, which is the British Justice Hall. I mean, I want to say it's the equivalent to our Supreme Court because there's other lower cases that are held there.
But it's the symbol of justice.
It's the main London area of justice. Yeah.
Well, and I think it does set up as like it's a building and it's also a symbol. And there is no justice in this country, so the building doesn't...
Yeah, it doesn't hold its purpose anymore.
But yeah, he basically sets up with music and everyone comes onto the street. And he makes a very public display of this. Something that's like, it's going to be hard to cover this up.
Yeah.
Even though they definitely do try.
Yeah, the council room we see after this reminds me of Dr. Strangelove and any other shadowy council of, round rooms, dark faces. And,
a giant TV screen, very big...
And John Hurt is the Chancellor, and I find this he's a phenomenal British actor, and he's in a lot of things that He's like Ollivander in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But what I find really appreciative of him being in this is that he was the first, I think, adaptation of the book 1984. He was the main character in that, and this heavily draws from that.
Yeah, with the big screen,
the big screens, face. And the taking people, the trying to... lie so much that it becomes the truth.
Yeah.
So it is apt to have him as that role.
Well, and this is a good place to talk about the differences between the comic and the movie.
Yeah.
Is the comic doesn't delve into the government that much. It kind of when it was written, it was in response to Margaret Thatcher and the surveillance state.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really talk about like how bad the government is, whereas the Wachowskis have definitely, gone out of the way to be. This is a sinister government, drawing upon all, the governments, the classics, the Nazis, the Soviets, stuff like this. The totalitarians, to make it like no, this is a very scary government. It makes it sinister.
Yeah.
Whereas the comic says we're just kind of like, it's more of like, do you want your government to have this much power? ?
Yeah, and this, I think it'll come up later, but they were drawing upon what the Bush era presidency was doing. Now, looking back, it doesn't seem as bad as what we've been dealing with recently, but it was a concern at the time.
No, and I think but you can't see like other movies like Big Brother, 1984, all these things. It paints this as a very threatening kind of establishment.
And we get our first broadcast by V, and just to show the staying power of this movie, this is the reason why the hacker group Anonymous has the Guy Fawkes mask, has this view of, we're going to just overtake your broadcast, wear this mask, and tell you what's wrong with whatever's going wrong. In this case, it's society of, hey, we can blame the government, but it's actually our fault for giving up safety for security. And that old quote from our founding father, Ben Franklin, of those who give up security for safety deserve neither. Kind of thing.
But to go back before he takes over the station, is we get the second part of this movie is you start to meet the inspector. Is he is the second part of this movie that I also enjoy is there's a mystery.
Yes,
and we're about as much in the dark as the inspector is, and so he's trying to piece things together, and you get a ton of MacGuffins that they do not explain. They say like St. Mary's and
Three Waters,
and they're like, well, we know who this girl is. Well, her parents were these protesters. They're like, oh geez, something that means something to them but doesn't mean us. But it keeps the story going as you learn more.
Yeah.
And you realize that she works at this TV station.
Yeah, BTN, which is the new version of the BBC.
Right. And it's like, this is where he stages his V stages his second attack, doing a kind of classic, quotey fingers, classic terrorist move of strapping a bomb to your chest and taking over the TV station, which he then can broadcast to the masses of saying, something's wrong. We all know something's wrong. And you get a look inside everyone's home, and you get, you see that there are pictures of the Chancellor in everyone's house, which is, a very hallmark of dictators and the strong-armed communist parties.
Yeah, that you need to have the fearless leader in your home overlooking you.
But you start, these faces that you see, you will come back to time and time again.
Yeah, as the
story progresses, and you start to get to hear there's things like, the message has been received.
Yeah. And we get the using his costume to hide himself among the hostages that gets used later on in other movies, but used quite effectively here to say, when you're just a message, you can hide among the masses kind of thing.
Exactly. And so this is where we get Evie is in a situation where she chooses to help V, and in that moment he then takes her back into his lair, because by helping
she signed her death warrant, and it's like either I take her or she dies.
Right. And since this is like the second time, it is that thing they keep coming back to, like there's only the illusion of coincidence.
Yeah, and the fact that she's there twice is weird.
Yeah.
And she wakes up in his bunker. Yeah. And I find it apt that she is first surrounded by a room full of books.
Yes.
And this reminds me of Fahrenheit 451, which I know the author initially did not anticipate that to be like a fascist controlling information movie or book. He wanted that one to be more of a condemnation of being lazy and just watching TV. But it has become a
Flashpoint?
A flashpoint, or yes, very nice, of a cautionary tale of don't let people control your information, because once you do, you don't get access to it ever.
Right. And it also sets up that he is well-read,
yes,
he is cultured, he is very smart.
Yes.
As we see in his talking with people, he's witty, he's charming, he's, he is a full package of what you want in a hero. But basically he tells her, you're stuck here with me.
Yeah, you're an unfortunate prisoner because I can't let you out. They will torture you.
And they will kill you, and I can't have my plans thwarted.
Yeah.
I don't want you dead, but really at the end of the day, it's like my plans take precedence.
Yeah, as we see with making her breakfast, and this is one of the first few times that we see his actual skin.
Yeah.
And this shows that he's very badly burned.
Yes. And we can only assume that it's all over, but there is something delightful about the way that the cameraman works with, like, putting an apron on him, using the lights to make an immobile mask change personalities. And he's very charming. And she's like, oh my God, real butter, showing that this is a society that is controlled down to rationing.
Yeah.
But we get a very famous line, because she's like, why are we doing this? You can't do this. And he's like, people shouldn't be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people. And that is really, this kind of anarchistic, like, listen, if the government's not going to do what it should, then the people should take it back.
Yeah. And then we get more hints at his backstory of like where he came from, but he says this is not good.
This is not the time.
This is not the time. And he goes out on his first outing.
Yeah, his first revenge killing, which is to the voice.
Which is the voice played by Roger Allam, who plays Louis Prothero, the personality of the BTN.
Yeah.
And who likes to watch himself, the show he just did, in the shower, so very vain, very...
But yeah, there is sort of a Seven Deadly Sins kind of thing. He's an egotist, he's addicted to drugs, he's angry, he is just a plethora of nastiness.
Yeah.
But we get the first flashback when V comes in and saying, Commander, and you get that kind of look of what happened in the past. That MacGuffin of
what is actually going
on.
Yeah.
And we get the first killing and the first rose.
Yes. And we learned that, he got rich with pharmaceuticals.
Yep.
And, that kind of hits kind of close to home right now with
COVID.
And all these people is like selling and buying off insider traders. Like, yeah, there should be some oversight. But
the inspector is still doing what, a good procedural cop film is like, you are following the leads, and he is just starting to pull at those strings. And we flash back to V, and his thing is showing that he's playful. There is almost like a childlike
glee
moment of him reenacting his favorite movie.
The Count of Monte Cristo, which is what I was about to hint at.
Yeah, The Count of Monte Cristo, which the 2000s version is also in my top 10, but it's a movie about revenge.
Yes. The danger, the overwhelming need for revenge when you're wrong so badly, can it blind you to other things? And in this case, it is a touch point for Evie and V of how their relationship will go.
Yeah. But so
we get a flashback of Evie's.
Well, we do. The police are still following those breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
They're talking about Larkill, like there's thing, it's that thing in any film where like I keep looking up, it doesn't exist or it's been scrubbed, but you start getting like more of this history of like there's Larkill, there's this virus, like I said, Evie's backstory talks about her brother getting sick.
Yeah, he was one of the kids at the school that got sick.
Right, there were riots, and then a very traumatizing remembrance of her parents being taken in black bags, very secret place of you put a bag over it and you're never seen again.
Yeah, and her mom died in prison during a hunger strike, and her dad died in a prison riot when they rushed in and killed it. Similar to what they did to the IRA people and after some of the bombings.
Right, but Evie then makes kind of an impassioned speech, but she actually makes a wish.
Yes.
She goes, I'm scared all the time. I wish I wasn't scared, because then I would be able to help you. And V kind of says, like, okay, I'll grant you that wish.
You can see that, like, I can do that. This will play off later. Going back to the investigation, they can't find anything. And I love that this like the most accurate records are tax records, and this made me just think of how we took down, how the U.S. government took down Al Capone.
It wasn't anything racketeering. It was you didn't pay your taxes.
It's like there's a Batman joke of the Joker like saying, I can mess with Batman, but I'm not going to mess with the IRS. That's just insane.
Yeah, but they find out that there was a father, a preacher there who was getting paid a lot of money. Yeah. Who is now a bishop, and we now have our second ritual killing.
Yes, the Evie is trying to escape.
Yes.
But is willing to help in efforts to escape, and we find out that the bishop gets one last indulgence, and he likes them very young.
Yeah,
which is
creepy. Yeah. Well, I mean, it comes back to like the seven. It's like he is a quotey fingers, moral
leader
pillar, but he is immoral and sinful.
Yeah.
And she escapes and runs to her former boss.
Yeah, Stephen Fry. But it was a kind of a quick and you miss it. We don't see how he kills the bishop, but he kills him with a poisoned Eucharist wafer. Because he says, stick out your tongue. And that's what they say when you do the communion.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is a quick thing of showing that there are surveillance vans combing the city, listening in on your conversations. Very much that, that Big Brother state is like, no, we're going to listen to you. We're going to listen to everybody.
Yeah.
And it's like, and the two officers who are listening to the father have obviously been on this case because they know his fetishes.
His type.
Yes, and it's like, creepy.
But yes, we go to Stephen Fry as Dietrich. Stephen Fry is an actor I quite adore. And here he plays, I'm going to kind of jump ahead, a gay TV presenter. And I kind of joke of, that's a stretch for him because he's a gay TV presenter. But he is a phenomenal actor. He's also a great audiobook person if you ever
want to read Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But no, he kind of reveals that he too has secrets that if it was ever discovered, he would be in a lot of trouble beyond just, his homosexuality being seen as undesirable in this community. But he also is like, listen, I don't like this state because I'm not part of it.
Yeah. And, he shows like, the importance of not getting rid of things that we view as a threat, like saying, why do you have a Quran? Are you Muslim? It's like, no, but I can still enjoy the imagery and the poetry
and accept a different thing.
Yeah.
So it's the exact opposite of what this state is. We now go back to the officer still trying to find this this killing. He meets with the coroner and is like, hey, you were a botanist. Do you know anything about these roses? And she's like, I know what this rose is. They're supposed to be extincted. When you rewatch it enough times, you see that it's played of she is terrified of seeing that rose, but you don't see it on the first viewing.
Yeah, you think of, because she says like, oh, yes, I know this. This is I thought extinct, flower. And also right afterwards, she kind of turns her back of, any leads? Are you going to find this guy? Kind of that, I know who
this is, and I'm worried.
Yeah, I'm on the list.
But she is the third one. She was the doctor overseeing this Lark Hill.
Yeah, I mean, she would be the equivalent of like a Mengele, but without as much information because she is the only one that shows regret.
Right,
and guilt.
And it's like, this is actually a mercy killing for V.
Yes.
And, it's basically, she's like, are you going to kill me? He's like, I killed you 10 minutes ago.
Well, and I love that she's like, are you here to kill me? And he just whispers yes, and she's like, Thank God. It's like she wants to die.
Yeah, she knows she's done wrong, and you get that. He says there is no illusion of coincidence. I'm planning this. I'm in control, and it's very much that. Is there, that touching moment of like, is like, can I still say sorry? Is it okay to say sorry? He goes, yeah. No. It's always a time to say sorry, but
it's like you can apologize. That won't absolve you from your faults, but to know that you have done wrong is a good thing to see.
Right, and so the inspector gets there, but he has her diary, which
the journal.
The inspector is getting a lot of red flags from his government, where they just say like, "Don't take that's hearsay." And
it's old hat. Focus on the now. Don't focus on the past.
Right. But then we get our biggest flashback to V's origin.
And I love this sequence.
No,
and it is. It's a hard sequence if you know your World War II history or anything.
No, and it invokes a lot of like callous human nature. But we know that this Lark Hill was a camp set up to test biological weapons on undesirables, and everyone basically died except this
guy in room
5 of V in Roman numerals, and that. He came out of the fires. He's obviously, whatever they have done to him has made him different.
Yeah, they said it gave him more perception, speed, and things. It's like this is the origin of his powers and his name, and that he has lost everything before this point.
Yeah, they said he has no memory of who he is, so he is just as much as an enigma to himself.
And not to bandy about, but we are two white guys. But this is to show the importance of diversity in film. This was done very purposely. This is one of the few times you will see a minority actor is in the camp as one of the people to show that minority people are undesirables.
Right. And it's a very white, hegemonic, Christian...
society that has been made and everything else has been taken away.
Right. Very, kind of like Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah. And we get to the explosion. Or you want to talk more? Okay.
Well, I was going to go more to the room silencer.
Okay, that's fine.
But there's an explosion. The camp is destroyed. All that stuff.
This is one I want to talk about. It's a practical shot of having V coming out of the fire, screaming. You think, oh, that was just fake fire. No, that was real fire. This was done with what's called a flame retardant gel, and usually they do it very sparingly, like on an arm or something. This was a full body application. They brought it down as low as temperature as possible, and they lucked out that it was very cold that night, so it made sure that the actor was safe while doing it. But it is a practical man walking through fire.
Yeah, basically, from what I heard, is like it was just a flame retardant G-string. That he was wearing and gel. But I mean, it does evoke this, he says later, is like, they were monsters and they created monsters. It's very much the Dr. Frankenstein's monster coming alive scene. But it does, it's the comic book origin story. Like, this is where it comes from.
Yeah.
But we go forward to the inspector, who has obviously read this, and he puts on a room silencer because he knows that they're being listened to. And he asks his partner, I need to say something out loud, whether you agree to it or not. It's like, would you want to know the truth? Because he's starting to put the pieces together as a good detective, saying, I'm starting to see a pattern, and I don't like the answers I'm getting of, what if this most horrific accident was not done by terrorists, but by our own government?
It made me think of a comedy British show, of where it was just two Nazi officers just sitting around going, are we the baddies?
Are we the baddies? I mean, it pulls upon, like, people saying, like, oh, 9/11 was an inside job. It does pull on the conspiracy theory, but it does raise that question, is like, what if we were misled?
Yeah.
And
would we want to know?
Would we want
Even
to
though
do you really want... It's like, and that's his almost saying it to himself, like, do I want to continue down this path? Because I know, as a good cop, what I'm going to find.
Yeah.
And you start to get an interlude of there is dissent among the population now. They are talking.
They're not
about
believing when they say, "Oh, someone's dead," or all these things. And then we get Stephen Fry.
Stephen Fry's Dissent show, which
Yeah.
is very Benny Hill.
Oh yeah, it's 100% Benny Hill.
You know, it's the old shows of the old England.
Yeah, of having scantily clad women making fun of power. The yakety sax is played.
Yeah.
There's a gorilla suit. Everything is done, but it is a condemnation of this government.
And the government does what any totalitarian does when it doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Is he is punished. And he thinks like, oh, I'm going to get a slap because I'm too public. You can't take me out.
We're popular. I'll get a fine. I'll have to do something. But no.
They kill him.
They kill him.
They take him. And Evie, it is that kind of history piece.
Yeah,
she is seeing the same thing, and she gets out and she is captured.
And I love, this. You probably should have watched it before, but this spoiler, on rewatching, if you look at the guy's mask, you do see the burn marks underneath the mask, and I appreciate that.
And that's that attention to detail, that if you rewatch these things, they'll come up. But to the first-time viewer...
You think she's
been captured.
Yeah.
She's interrogated. They shave her head.
And this is a practical shaving of the head. Usually they'll use a bald cap, but Natalie Portman said, I've always wanted to shave my head.
Let's do it.
This is a perfect time. And everyone's like, okay, we only get one take of this. Set up as many cameras. Please no one screw this up. And they did it, and it is powerful to see an actress getting her head shaved because you know how that's a year-long commitment in essence for that.
You're not getting another job where they're like...
Well, they can put on wigs, but it's like that doesn't influence your future jobs.
Yeah. She's thrown in a cell and she's tortured, which, there are questions about how V was able to do this, spoiler, but it's done in a way that there's shadows and there's masks.
Yes. And we also know he has a real-life face mask, and the question of why would he have this prison cell in his thing, and I would argue it's kind of hinted at of this was his birthplace, his home. This was where he fell in love with Mallory, which we'll talk about in a second. But I could see him recreating it to say, this is something I don't ever want to forget. So to throw her into a cell is not unreasonable to me.
Right.
But as a quick thing of when she's first thrown in, the food is so bad that a rat won't even eat it.
Yeah, no, it's an on-the-nose thing, but it helps the audience know that, like, listen, if a rat doesn't eat it, don't eat it.
Don't eat it, yeah.
But no, and we do get...
Another flashback.
Another flashback to Valerie. Yeah, another V.
Number 4. Yeah.
Yeah, number 4, who was right. And this I like is because it shows a similar story to what the doctor was saying, but from a different perspective.
The victim's perspective.
Where she said she had a good early life, but then she found out that she learned her life that she loved women.
I mean, it's like she's my age, and that's like, okay, so she came out on the two.
But it's very reminiscent of like things from the early '80s, which this because of like the family didn't accept it, she was kicked out, but then she found true love and got the roses.
Yep, this is where the origin of the rose comes from.
And then seeing the fall of England, life becoming scary, and then very much the roundups.
Yeah.
And how she ended up in Lark Hill, but you see it from her perspective.
Yeah, and the treatment of how they weren't human anymore, but she was going to give her last inch of humanity, her last inch of self.
Well, and I think it comes back to what V was saying, or what the theme of it is, like, words have power. Yeah. The person is gone, but my words remain.
Yeah, and this is the treatment gave V his powers, but it's this little scrap of paper that he got pushed through the wall to him that gave him purpose.
Exactly. And Evie finds this purpose, and it's that kind of awakening moment of she is no longer afraid. Yeah. But then you realize that it's been a ruse.
Yeah. It was
the wish granted. It's like, you didn't want to be afraid, and this is the only way I knew how to do it. Yeah. And she is not happy.
And he knew that was going to happen.
And there is a bit of Stockholm Syndrome thing going on here. You can't deny it. But we get a kind of Shawshank Redemption moment.
Yeah, rain is used a lot for baptism and renewal. Well, and this is apt very much for this movie.
And I took it a different way. I mean, yes, there is that. Yeah. But his... Corey Finger's baptism was through fire.
Yes, I know.
Hers is through water. And so it plays off at the end is that my job is to destroy.
Yours is to create.
Yours is to create the fire-water dichotomy.
Yeah.
But we get to... The government is now afraid. Yeah. We are getting closer to the original threat made back at the beginning of...
On the 5th of November,
I'm going to blow up Parliament. And they're starting to use the scare tactics, like throw every scary thing you can up at the screen.
Yeah, I call it the doom spiral of propaganda. And this is where I think they were most reminiscent of the Bush era, where they were. I remember in the theaters where there's like, oh, there's this war, there's this attack, and then avian flu came up, and there was a little chuckle because we all remember it's like, oh yeah, that was a thing we were supposed to be afraid of. That turned out not to be that big of a deal.
I mean, it's hard not to compare it to like the 24-hour news cycle, which that's all they want to play is doom after doom after doom after doom. Yeah. But we get this kind of not a Deus Ex Machina, but there's this insider called Rookwood.
Yes.
And he...
Through the investigation, they said there's just one person who hasn't been accounted for, and
he has emailed me.
Yeah.
And they go to the St. Mary's Memorial, which I found interesting that it shows kids playing Ring Around the Rosie, which is a song to the Black Plague.
Yeah, it's associated with disease and death, and it's a kid's game, and since kids died of a disease there, it is hard.
It's dark, and this Rookwood basically shows the rise of a chancellor.
Yeah.
How do you do it? It's like, well, you create a virus and you create a cure, so you're seen as the savior, and then you blame another populace.
Yeah, it's like using fear to gain power, and that thing of we have a weapon that we could use on our enemies, but would be much more powerful for us if we used it on ourselves.
Yeah, so
and blamed our enemies.
Mm-hmm. But they said, well, do you have evidence of this? We're going to bring you in. He goes, no. You have to put Creedy, who is the head of the secret police, on surveillance before I do anything.
Yeah.
And real quickly, they show that this has been V in disguise, and this is all part of his plan. He wants Creedy to feel like he's not trusted. He's the puppet master now.
It's his chess piece to get to the chancellor.
Yep.
And we get Creedy in the greenhouse, and what's being played for music is Beethoven's Fifth, another V, but it's a double V because that's Morse code for the da 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 is Morse code for V, and V for victory. It was like a V's upon V's.
V's upon V's. Well, you also get Natalie Portman, who's out in the real world, sees the little girl in glasses, who's been popping up, spray painting a V on a propaganda poster, showing that the dissent is getting really high.
It's no longer within the house saying bollocks. It's now on the street.
It's out on the street, and we get another big kind of flashy scene with the dominoes, and the inspector kind of explaining this is how it's going to play out. Now, and I think it talks about a powder keg scene, and we've seen this throughout history. The shot heard around the world of there is a volatile situation. All it takes is one person doing something stupid
to set it off. And just for a hint of this, took professional domino setters 22,000 dominoes in 200 hours to set it up.
Yeah, it's like one of those like
again, don't mess us up. We only have so many takes of it.
But I mean, it shows. The kid gets shot, and the neighborhood no longer afraid of these fingermen beating him to death. And like this, and then it goes into riots. This is the end of this is how governments fall.
And then the dominoes are knocked over
with one piece,
the hinge point.
Yeah, which is that November 4th.
Yes,
they wake up, and the song playing is "Ride the Long Black Train," which is the hint to how
he was going to
do it. But you get a nicer moment with Evie and V reunited for a dance, which is also a difference from the comic book, is there was no romance in the comic. The comic really did delve on the personalities of the characters, but Alan Moore had no interest in
having a romantic...
Or just not fleshing the characters out. He's like, no, this is a straight-up revenge, cut and dry... I tend to like it. It does kind of go to the Stockholm syndrome, but I think they do it where it's not forced.
Yeah, and we learned that he's been clearing the tracks for 10 years, and that's why this is happening now and not immediately. And I always wanted a line after Natalie Portman kissed the mask.
Yeah,
to be very similar to why would you ask a man in a mask? He was like, you just kissed a mask. I appreciate the effort here, but
but I mean, he in essence gives Evie the power to do this. Like, listen, my role is done.
Yeah.
It'll be up to it's that firewater thing. Yeah. You will have to be the next.
Well, it's that Monte Cristo. I was like, my revenge is greater than my love, but you are going to be different, and I can't be in charge then.
And he is given a choice. Like you can go for your revenge, or you can go for the girl, which is Monte Cristo, where he says, "I feel for Mercedes because she doesn't get loved. And
Yeah.
he has that moment where he thinks about it,
Yeah.
but he goes to go meet Creedy at, Victoria Station.
Another V.
To get the Chancellor. And I do
Our
find...
fourth death, the death of the Chancellor.
Which he does not do.
No.
He's killed by his own henchmen.
Which I feel, is like many of the other ones, it's apt of John Hurt didn't kill anyone in essence, but by his actions had others get killed. Mm-hmm. So by having V have someone else kill John Hurt, it is kind of that, again, poetic, justice. But
I mean, we get another great line, another quip by V, where he's like, "Well, what are you gonna do? We've got guns." He goes, "No. You have bullets." And it's like, your hope is that by the time you're out of bullets, I'm not moving. And you do get a really fun scene of they shoot him up.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, now it's my turn.
Yeah. And this is, they're playing with bullet time.
Yes.
Now with what you say is the fight knife time. And this was done very cleverly of having the guys with the guns being filmed at a very slower motion. Well, it's all slow motion, but V is filmed at not as slow motion. So it does give that sense of he is very fast, he is very agile and very strong, that even in slow motion he kind of looks normal.
Yep. And it's this great fight scene, and he, fulfills his prophecy of I'm going to strangle you to death.
And we get our fifth death, 5.
Death
of McCready.
Death of McCready, and he's injured.
Yeah.
He takes off a bulletproof vest. He bleeds on the wall, which turns into a V.
Another V.
And he kind of limps off, but up above ground, there is now a mob versus an army, and there's a lot of confusion. And the army general basically tells everyone to stand down because he's got no orders.
Yeah, which is one of those thank God it happened that way, because the inspector says what happens when people without guns go against people with
guns. It could have been very different.
Yeah.
And the mob passes, and V finds his final resting spot.
Yes.
Back on the the train.
His 20-year plan has come to fruition.
The inspector, who finally gets to his end result, finds Evie.
Yeah.
But also does the exact same thing she does. If he's given a choice and he stands down.
Yeah. And we see all these people outside of Parliament waiting and the music starting. This is also actually outside of Parliament.
Yeah, which was really hard for them. They were allowed to film at 4 minutes a piece at 4 a.m.
So, they were allowed 4 a.m. and only allowed to shut down traffic for 4 minutes. So they had to have this on their game. And then the 1812 Overture gets played again, which I enjoy because it is a capital being burned down again.
Yep. So... But, we have a big boom, it would make Michael Bay happy, a landmark is destroyed. Mm-hmm. But we see the faces of the people, we also see the faces of the fallen.
Yes, we know.
All being there, kind of being...
It's that thing of, it's that thing of V is you, V is me, V is, the people who have died, who we know have died, the little girl, Stephen Fry, their memory is carried on in this action, that this is a changing moment in the world. Mm-hmm. And that it is a lesson of saying, don't become complacent.
No, but it comes back to it is that story of a government can only do so much if you
allow it.
If you allow it, a government needs to be recognizing of its people and needs to understand that it can only do so much.
Yeah, and it's that concern is yes, it's scary. It's if I stand up, I could die. It's yes, you might, but if we all stand up, they can't do this anymore.
Exactly.
Normally I would do a pun, but this one's just too good of where you've talked about standing up to governments and their false propaganda to a movie about a government making false propaganda
to cover its ass.
Our next movie is the comedy Wag the Dog. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen it since we first saw it in the theaters, but I did enjoy it.
I expect it to be dated.
Yes.
I think it's going to be one of those things where you have to put it in its time and place. But it's about the spin doctors and how can you take a situation that will make your candidate look bad and spin it so that no one notices
the bad thing and
the stain on your shirt.
Else. Yeah, but I hope you watch V for Vendetta for this, because if not, I highly, highly suggest it. I is very glad it's in my collection.
Yep. Read the comic book if you want. It is very 1980s.
Yes.
It does not hold up as well as the movie.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure this one will seem dated to younger generations as time goes on. But, if not, watch Wag the Dog before next week, and thanks for coming by.
Bye. Tree killer.
I know. And then I had to go through 3 pins because they were all broken. I was getting very frustrated last night. This one works then. This one doesn't work. It's like, I just want to write my notes down. I can't be trusted to remember things.